So now let's talk about the brain. So this brain is simply the enlarged anterior is at the enlarged anterior end of the spinal cord, all right? So this brain has got three regions. We have the forebrain, we have the midbrain, and we have the hindbrain. So this forebrain is made up of the cerebrum, which is responsible for your intelligence, the hypothalamus, which is responsible for your temperature regulation. We have the pituitary gland, which is the master gland producing several hormones, and we have the olfactory lobe. All right, that's what makes up the forebrain. And then we have the midbrain. This midbrain is made up of the optic lobe. So whenever we deal with the optic, we know to say we are dealing with light. So the midbrain is made up of the optic lobe. And then we have the hindbrain. This hindbrain is made up of the medulla oblongata. This medulla oblongata controls some automatic processes such as the heart rate, your breathing rate, your swallowing, salivating, sneezing, and coughing. All that is regulated by the medulla oblongata. And then we have the cerebellum. So this cerebellum is responsible for controlling your balance and posture. So that maintenance of balance and posture, for example, when you want to fall down and you find yourself still coming to a stable position, all that is being done by this structure, which is the cerebellum. All right, so we have the central hemisphere. So this central hemisphere is found in the central part, and we have structures such as the thalamus, we have structures such as the hypothalamus, we have our pituitary gland there, we have our pons, we have our medulla, we have our spinal cord going down like that, and then we have the cerebellum, which is usually the somehow this region which maintains your balance and posture. Now let's get into the functions of the different parts of the brain. So we have the medulla oblongata. All right, someone used to say, I want you to think with your medulla oblongata. We don't think using our medulla oblongata. So this medulla oblongata links the spinal cord and the brain. So it helps to conduct nerve impulses between the two parts, which is the brain and the spinal cord. This one simply controls automatic processes such as your heart rate, your breathing rate, swallowing, salivating, sneezing, and coughing. All these are controlled by the medulla oblongata. Moving on to another part of the brain, which is the cerebellum. So this cerebellum, it controls coordinated movements, right? So in summary, you can simply say it helps to maintain balance and posture, right? So it helps to maintain posture and also controls the sequence of activities involved in dancing, acrobats, and playing of musical instruments. All this is done by your cerebellum. And then we have the hypothalamus. The word hypo, you know to say you're dealing with temperature, right? So hypothalamus, sometimes regarded as the center of homeostasis. So this homeostasis is simply the maintenance of a constant and internal environment of the body. So this hypothalamus is the center for which it controls thirst, it controls hunger, and thermal regulation. The word thermo, you're dealing with temperature, not hypo, right? So thermo, you're dealing with temperature. Regulation, the regulation of temperature, basically. So the regulation of temperature, you feeling hungry, you feeling thirsty, all that is done in this center, which we call the hypothalamus. And then we have another part, which is the pituitary gland. Now this pituitary gland is also known as the master gland, right? It produces several hormones. Examples, we have the antidiuretic hormone, which is going to cause the kidneys to start reabsorbing water, right? And also other several hormones like the adrenocorticotropic hormone is also produced by this pituitary gland. So this links the central nervous system and the endocrine system. That's the pituitary gland. You need to watch our previous video. I think I described in detail what this pituitary gland does. Let's move on to the cerebrum, which which is my favorite part of the brain. So this is the largest part of the brain, and it is the center for intelligence, memory, language, and consciousness. So this intelligence, whenever you deal with intelligence, all that is found in this part of the brain, which we call the cerebrum, right? So the sensory areas, it has both motor and sensory areas. So the motor areas controls voluntary movements. The sensory areas interpret sensations and are linked by association areas. So injury to the cerebrum is going to lower your intelligence. All right. So this cerebrum occupies 3/4 of the brain. Human beings have got the largest cerebrum of all the animals, and it is divided into two halves, which are known as cerebral hemispheres. So the outer part is the cortex, which is folded and wrinkled to give a very large surface area. So the cortex is gray in color because it contains cell bodies of the neurons. The inner part is white in color as it is made up of axons of the neurons, right? Now let's look at the differences between the endocrine and the nervous system. So in the nervous system, messages are electrical or in form of nerve impulses, while in the endocrine system, messages are chemical. When we deal with chemicals, we are dealing with hormones. For example, the insulin hormone, the glucagon hormone, the antidiuretic hormone, all those different hormones. When we are dealing with the hormones, we are dealing with the endocrine system. Now, in the nervous system, responses are localized, right? While in the endocrine system, responses are widespread and affect more than one target organ. And then in the nervous system, responses are short-lived or they are temporal, while in the endocrine system, these responses can either be temporal or permanent. In the nervous system, responses are often quick, while in the endocrine system, responses can either be quick, examples for adrenaline, or slow for sex hormones. So this marks the end of our topic on the brain, which is made up of, which is something that makes up our nervous system. So have a good day, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment box and I'll respond to those queries. Otherwise, have a good day and bye-bye.